In the past year, violence has erupted several times inside the walls of Oklahoma prisons. In September, 4 inmates were killed at the Cimarron Correctional Facility in Cushing, surpassing the number of inmates killed during the prison riot at McAlester in 1973. The new interim director of the State Department of Corrections warns of another catastrophic prison incident if something isn't done to address the overcrowding in state lockups.
In July of 1973, the Oklahoma State Prison at McAlester erupted into one of the worst prison riots in U.S. history. During the 9-day siege, 3 people were killed, 21 prison employees were taken hostage, and 24 buildings were either destroyed or damaged. At the time, officials blamed the long-decayed facility and overcrowding for the uprising. Today, Oklahoma prisons are operating at 120% capacity. Joe Albaugh was appointed interim director of the Department of Corrections in January.
I asked early on, what's our 5-year plan? What's our 10-year plan? What's our 3-year plan? There is no plan for the Department of Corrections. The plan is do what you have to do to survive the day. And that's not a plan. That's an accident waiting to happen once again.
As the former head of FEMA under the George W. Bush administration, Albaugh was in the midst of many disasters, the most notable, the 9/11 terrorist attack of the World Trade Center. Albaugh is an Oklahoma native and says he took the job because of its challenge.
I mean, someone has to step up and lay it out, and this is black and white. I mean, numbers don't lie. But it is a system that is broken, that needs serious attention, and this just didn't happen overnight. This is decades in the making.
Albaugh says the whole prison system is antiquated.
This is our biggest problem, though, right there. You come in to our system at the Lexington Assessment and Receiving Center, and we start building you one of these files. This is the same system, the same type of file system we used back when we were a territory in the 19th century.
But a more immediate concern for Albaugh is the safety of correctional officers and inmates. The number of all corrections employees has fallen by 1,700 since 2007, and the number of inmates is at an all-time high and still growing.
These big numbers are driven by intake. We're on the wrong glide path. We're going up. And we'll have a net growth in 17 of anywhere between 9 and 1,300, I think. Net new people that we don't have beds for right now.
Albaugh says overcrowding is just one of multiple hazards plaguing DOC. In the past few weeks, Albaugh has made surprise visits to more than a dozen lockups and doesn't like what he saw.
Capital needs are in excess of $750 million system-wide. Now, we're not going to get that kind of money.
Instead of throwing bad money at the problems, Albaugh believes some prisons need to close. For 2017, he is asking for a $19 million hike in appropriations to start addressing the host of problems. But for now, he's focused on this year's operating budget. Albaugh has asked lawmakers for $23 million in supplemental funding just to keep DOC running through June. In her State of the State address, Governor Mary Fallin put corrections at the top of her budget priority list.
This budget proposes the Department of Corrections receive an annualized $20 million increased supplemental appropriation this year and a $10 million appropriation increase next year to address continued offender growth and to keep the public safe.
A strong commitment from the governor, but is it one she can keep?
I don't think we're prepared yet to talk about a supplemental for any agency.
Senate President Brian Bingman says this year's revenue failure and a $1.3 billion budget hole for next fiscal year leaves lawmakers with some hard decisions to make.
Pretty obvious that when we talk about next year's budget, cuts are going to have to be made, so it's difficult, in my opinion, to prop up, supplement agencies with this year's budget when next year's numbers are going to be less. So I think everyone needs to prepare for, whatever that number is next year, 5.8, is it 6 billion? I don't know, but it's going to be less than, I would expect it to be less than what the certification number was for November.
The spokesman for Oklahoma Corrections Professionals is Gus Blackwell, a former legislator.
One of the core functions of government is to keep the people safe. And if we don't fund DOC at the proper level, we're not keeping them safe. We're not fulfilling a core role of government.
Albaugh is hoping lawmakers do right by corrections.
Elected officials are hired to make tough decisions. It's all about leadership. And we'll see what they do. I'm hopeful. I don't expect anything, but I'm hopeful.
If lawmakers fail to act, Albaugh says they can't say he didn't warn them.
It will be a crisis, and then we'll have an incident. And then everybody will say, well, why didn't you tell us? Well, I'm doing it on the front end.